The real threat to our league isn't money, it isn't ratings, or even missed calls, or even physical play. It's the lack of accountability from the league office.
Did Sue Bird just witness a changing of the guard, or was it something far more unsettling? Imagine the WNBA legend, known for her unmatched composure, caught in a moment of raw, unvarnished emotion, her face a canvas of disbelief, disappointment, and perhaps a hint of something deeper. What could possibly shatter the equilibrium of a player who has seen it all, a true icon of the game? Get ready, because what unfolded next sent shockwaves through the league, and left everyone wondering about the true nature of loyalty and leadership. Naomi. Just moments after Napheesa Collier's press conference concluded, a media event so charged it practically vibrated through the WNBA. Cameras zeroed in on Sue Bird. Her reaction was immediate and unmistakable, a silent testament to the seismic shift that had just occurred. Whispers immediately began to circulate. Was it a simple matter of loyalty challenged, or did it expose a much more profound behind-the-scenes rift that no one had dared to acknowledge? The air crackled with unspoken tension, hinting at a narrative far more complex than any game day rivalry. And Tia? An undeniable unease rippled through the entire league. Teammates exchanged nervous glances, their expressions mirroring the confusion etched across the faces of fans scrolling through their feeds. The palpable tension wasn't confined to a single locker room. It spread like wildfire, igniting debates and speculation across social media platforms, leaving everyone grasping for answers as the WNBA braced itself for an unexpected storm. Unroulettes and phantom pay, ta. So what exactly could have provoked such a visceral response from one of basketball's most revered and typically serene legends? This wasn't just about a bad call or a tough loss. This was about something intrinsically sacred between two titans of the sport, a bond that in that very moment appeared to have been irrevocably shattered, leaving a void where trust once stood. Naomi WEC was pro the T-word of was pullers, waiting super madi what be at. In the midst of this unfolding drama, Sue Bird found herself in a unique position, observing the undeniable ascent of a new leader. And now we're sick. CZ. As the relentless camera lights glared, Sue Bird remained motionless, her gaze unwavering as she absorbed every single syllable from Napheesa Collier. This wasn't just another routine post-game interview, it felt like a pivotal, almost spiritual turning point in the WNBA's history. For Bird, a venerable figure whose wisdom and experience had shaped women's basketball for decades, this particular moment resonated with an unexpected, almost profound emotional weight. She had witnessed countless stars rise and fall, but something in Collier's commanding presence, her measured tone, and her quiet, undeniable authority seemed to herald a fundamental shift in the very rhythm and soul of the WNBA itself. And like Hijib and sees, Napheesa Collier, the dynamic face of the Minnesota Lynx and undeniably one of the league's brightest and most promising young talents, was speaking with remarkable clarity about the nuanced complexities of leadership. She articulated with profound insight what it truly feels like to step into the immense void left by the veteran players who had painstakingly shaped and defined the team's identity before her. Her voice, calm and steady, belied her years, masterfully balancing raw honesty with an almost unsettling poise that captivated every ear in the room. Yeah, and wrestle none. There was absolutely no trace of rehearsed charm in her delivery, no hint of forced humility designed to appease. Collier's authenticity was immediately striking and refreshing. TN. Every single sentence she uttered was deliberate, meticulously grounded in truth, and resonated with an undeniable, profound sincerity that silenced any skeptics. Nengos ported relay to Zigada Dance Shu Sen. And as Bird absorbed every word, she recognized something inherently powerful in Collier's presence, a natural command, an innate leadership quality that simply cannot be taught or acquired. Mashti T. Bird, herself a paragon of composure, both on and off the court throughout her illustrious career, later reflected deeply on the sheer grace and authority with which Collier navigated that incredibly weighty moment. Solus to Quunstable. What truly captivated and impressed Bird wasn't merely the content of Collier's impactful words, but the profound way she carried herself, her demeanor speaking volumes without a single extra syllable. W. Puns. Collier's confidence wasn't the loud, attention-grabbing kind, it was a steady, unwavering force, much like a powerful, consistent heartbeat resonating calmly beneath immense pressure. W or Feesin Mo to Alika fans. Intriv the Wyverbees one still shit do it event. It was a moment that vividly transported Bird back to the countless times she herself had stood before a barrage of microphones, acutely aware that a single carefully chosen sentence could shape headlines, irrevocably sway public opinion, or even define an entire season's narrative. For Bird, a press conference was always far more than a mere formality. It served as a profound reflection of an athlete's self-perception and her integral place within the sport. She instinctively understood the subtle yet immense power embedded in those moments, how the precise tone, the perfect expression could forge an unbreakable connection between a player, her devoted fans, and the broader basketball community. Watching Collier, Bird recognized someone who instinctively understood that delicate balance, exuding both raw authenticity and unwavering composure, relatable yet undeniably authoritative. Notched up. It was a performance that commanded profound respect not through flashy theatrics or grand gestures, but through the sheer unadulterated power of truth and genuine presence. Ace. Collier, with remarkable courage, didn't shy away from the most difficult or uncomfortable questions either. She faced them head-on unflinchingly. All da bis. When challenged about the intricate complexities of leading a young, evolving team or navigating the monumental expectations that inevitably accompany being a franchise cornerstone, she responded with an astonishing clarity and unwavering conviction. Her words reflected not only a deeply impressive self-awareness, but also a compelling, forward-thinking vision for the future of women's basketball, a future that Bird herself had tirelessly spent decades fighting to meticulously build and champion. Losakol for Trini W. Olfatudas, Toma von Sprovworted Vaknen. For Bird, this profound moment transcended mere admiration. It was an undeniable recognition of a kindred spirit. The calm strength, the unwavering composure under intense scrutiny, the steadfast refusal to let the overwhelming pressure of the moment consume her. These were the very traits Bird had meticulously cultivated and relied upon throughout her own illustrious 20-year career. And now, witnessing Collier embody them with such natural, effortless grace, she felt a complex mix of immense pride and a bittersweet ache. It was a quiet, almost sacred handover, a living legend witnessing the undeniable rise of the next formidable guardian of the game. In W. Persenian with Bezerabadi Vahian. Sue Bird's reaction wasn't fueled by envy, nor was it a wistful embrace of nostalgia. Instead, it was a profound acknowledgement of the enduring continuity of something truly sacred, a powerful reminder that true greatness in basketball isn't solely measured in points scored or championships won, but in the unwavering courage to lead, to speak one's truth, and to inspire those who are destined to follow. Naomi savors the cigarette, holds it. And as the incessant click of camera shutters filled the air, and Collier's resonant words echoed far beyond the confines of the press room, Bird found herself certain of one undeniable truth. The future of the WNBA had just unequivocally found its next powerful voice. Next up to Big, for esse bid is solely Dio. So, what profound truth did Sue Bird truly perceive that day? Was it merely a ceremonial passing of the torch, or did she glimpse the ominous warning of a storm yet to come, brewing just beneath the surface? Stay glued, because the layers of this story are just beginning to unfold. Bird now reflects on the immense weight of speaking out, a burden she knows all too well, having navigated countless triumphs, endured heart-wrenching defeats, and faced pivotal moments that tested not just a player's skill, but their very strength of character. Bird listened intently as Napheesa Collier spoke about the controversial events that transpired after Game 3. Beneath the usual veneer of post-game analysis, Bird sensed something far deeper emerging, an undercurrent that had long pulsed within the WNBA, a potent mix of entrenched frustration and resolute determination. Naomi Athatkorchak. For Bird, Collier's candid comments didn't just reveal an isolated incident, they laid bare a harsh truth she had known intimately for years. Delayed Tains. While the immediate catalyst for this pivotal moment might have been the intense heat of competitive play, the conversation Collier ignited transcended the boundaries of any single game. The incident that erupted during Game 3, as Sue Bird deeply reflected, was far more than a fleeting moment of on-court tension. It was merely a visible spark igniting a fire that had smoldered for years. This was an entrenched narrative, a foundational struggle woven into the very fabric of the league, deeply rooted in the relentless fight for fundamental recognition, equitable treatment, and the respect so unequivocally deserved by the pioneering women who had poured their entire lives, their sweat, and their unwavering passion into cultivating this sport. It became abundantly clear that the underlying issues did not suddenly materialize on that fateful night. Instead, the heated exchange and subsequent controversy simply ripped back the veil, forcing these long-simmering grievances and systemic imbalances into the harsh, unforgiving glare of public scrutiny. The incident was not the problem itself, but rather a glaring, undeniable symptom. Now occupying a truly unique and at times precarious position as a part of team ownership, Bird found herself navigating a delicate tightrope with every word she uttered. There were inherent, unspoken limits to the extent of her public discourse, invisible boundaries she was professionally obligated to acknowledge and meticulously respect. The corporate landscape and her new role imposed a cautious silence on certain truths, demanding a strategic restraint that often felt at odds with her own convictions. Yet, despite these constraints, there remained an expansive and powerful domain where her voice could resonate without compromise, the undeniable weight of history itself. And that she understood with profound certainty spoke volumes more than any direct accusation or public condemnation ever could. By simply recounting the league's journey, she could unveil the patterns, illuminate the persistent challenges, and subtly underscore the continuous fight for equity without ever needing to break her carefully maintained public decorum. Time and again, the annals of the WNBA testified to a clear, irrefutable pattern whenever players compelled by necessity ultimately decided to harness their collective power and amplify their voices. Tangible and meaningful change invariably followed. Yet, this path was perpetually arduous, fraught with resistance, and incredibly frustrating. It was a disheartening reality that substantive progress so often hinged upon the players themselves bearing the unjust burden of initiating the outcry, of being the ones forced to vociferously demand attention and action before any genuine steps were taken by those in positions of authority. What consistently struck Bird with a potent sense of dismay was the pervasive public misunderstanding surrounding this critical dynamic, this often overlooked crucible of advocacy. Far too many observers, she mused, continued to view the vibrant world of women's basketball through the antiquated, often biased lens of men's sports, automatically presuming identical structural frameworks, mirroring privileges, and an equivalent robust system of unwavering support. This ingrained perspective blinded them to the unique uphill battle faced by the WNBA. But the stark, unvarnished reality was profoundly different. The WNBA, from its very inception, had been compelled to wage a far more intense and relentless fight to earn the same fundamental respect, the same widespread recognition, and the same basic, undeniable fairness routinely afforded to its male counterparts. And when those ostensibly in charge repeatedly failed to heed the quiet, private appeals and concerns, the players, out of sheer necessity, collectively learned to elevate their voices, making them utterly impossible to ignore. The advent of social media, Bird keenly observed, profoundly transformed this contentious battlefield, irrevocably altering the dynamics of advocacy. It instantaneously granted players unprecedented, direct access to their vast fan base, and crucially, afforded them the unfiltered freedom to articulate their truths, bypassing traditional media gatekeepers and league-controlled narratives. This new digital arena became a potent amplifier for their collective message. However, she also possessed the seasoned wisdom to discern the crucial distinction between impulsively venting frustrations online and meticulously crafting a thoughtful, meticulously prepared statement that truly carried significant weight and strategic impact. This capacity, she firmly believed, was something uniquely powerful and deeply ingrained within the women of her league. The extraordinary ability to channel raw, potent emotion into organized, strategically purposeful advocacy. She vividly recalled countless instances where players had diligently attempted to communicate their concerns privately, only to be met with frustrating dismissal, indefinite delays, or outright silence. Eventually, through bitter experience and repeated setbacks, they collectively learned an undeniable truth. The public stage, with its vast reach and undeniable pressure, was frequently the only arena that could compel the league's attention and force meaningful engagement. And this, Bird concluded with unwavering conviction, was not an act of rebellious defiance. It was a fundamental demand for accountability. One particular moment from the season resonated with Bird, standing out with striking clarity. It didn't emerge from a seasoned veteran like Collier, but from Paige Bueckers, a young guard whose wisdom seemed to far exceed her years. Before a pivotal game in Indiana, Paige candidly turned to her teammates and uttered a phrase that lodged itself firmly in Bird's memory. "I've had to learn how to defend while fouling again." The remark was delivered with a half-joking inflection, a wry smile, but beneath the surface humor lay a profound weariness, a quiet yet potent acknowledgement of the pervasive inconsistencies and the unspoken, arduous struggles that players routinely endured simply to adapt and survive within the league's often unpredictable environment. For Bird, this single statement crystallized the entire complex struggle she had witnessed. The simmering frustration, the indomitable resilience, and the relentless, unending effort to finally be genuinely heard and respected. The WNBA, Bird understood, was far more than just a professional sports league. It was an enduring movement, meticulously built upon generations of unwavering persistence and unyielding determination. As she watched this vibrant new generation of players courageously rise to speak out with the very same conviction and audacious spirit she herself had once embodied, Bird recognized that the historical cycle of advocacy wasn't simply drawing to a close. Instead, it was powerfully, dynamically evolving, transforming into something even more formidable. The torch had unequivocally been passed, a sacred inheritance that carried with it the profound responsibility to relentlessly push forward until true, deeply rooted, and lasting systemic change finally took hold. But what truly happens when this tenacious fight for fundamental fairness inevitably outgrows the confines of the basketball court itself, inevitably forcing both legendary figures and ambitious newcomers alike to critically redefine the very essence of what justice unequivocally means within their competitive and often challenging world. When fairness itself demands an undeniable voice, Bird found herself reflecting on countless post-game analyses and candid locker room conversations throughout her illustrious career, yet Paige Bueckers' words resonated with her far longer and deeper than most. Before a game in Indiana, the young star had spoken with disarming candor about the dramatic shift in her defensive mindset since transitioning from the structured environment of college basketball to the professional arena. In school, she explained, every coaching directive, every drill had been meticulously focused on mastering the art of defending asterisk without asterisk fouling, emphasizing precision, disciplined restraint, and absolute control. But in the WNBA, she had swiftly come to a stark, very different realization. To merely survive, let alone thrive, at this elite level, she declared, you had to learn how to defend while fouling. Bird detected no trace of bitterness in Paige's voice, only an unvarnished, almost clinical honesty. There was no hidden agenda, no calculated attempt to ignite controversy or provoke a reaction. Paige was simply articulating a profound, unspoken reality that every single player in the league instinctively recognized, yet very few possessed the courage or the platform to articulate so openly. It was a raw, undeniable truth about the league's demanding physical play, its inconsistent officiating, and the relentless, often unacknowledged struggle for survival within its competitive landscape. Yet, Bird's reflections were never about assigning blame to individuals. In fact, she often harbored a deep sympathy for the officials themselves, recognizing their job as arguably the most demanding in all of sports. Picture the relentless pressure split-second decisions made under intense scrutiny, every whistle magnified and dissected endlessly across social media platforms, each potential mistake replayed and analyzed from a dozen angles. The sheer weight of this growing negativity, she believed, had unfairly settled squarely on their shoulders. For Bird, the true problem wasn't about a single referee or a flawed call, it was a systemic breakdown. Across nearly every team in the league, players and coaches were voicing the same concerns: a bewildering lack of consistency, a pervasive confusion regarding how physical play was being judged from one game to the next. This wasn't about a solitary incident, it was about a deeply ingrained pattern that was fundamentally altering the feel and flow of the sport. Bird was convinced that a simple yet profoundly crucial step could begin to bridge this widening chasm: genuine acknowledgement. This wasn't about silence, nor was it about defensive posturing, but rather the courageous willingness of those in power to simply utter three powerful words: "We hear you." Whether such a statement emanated from the commissioner's office, the officiating department, or the competition committee, a public declaration recognizing the legitimacy of the players' concerns would, in Bird's view, profoundly shift the dynamic. At the heart of all the mounting frustration lay a fundamental human need: the desire to be acknowledged and understood. Bird understood that even if the league was already toiling tirelessly behind the scenes to rectify these issues, voicing that commitment openly would carry immense weight. Transparency, she reasoned, was the ultimate expression of respect, signaling to players that their experiences were not being dismissed, that their struggles were not invisible. As she absorbed the candid remarks from players like Collier and Buckers, and listened to the murmuring conversations echoing through locker rooms across the league, Bird's perspective sharpened. The true core of the issue, she realized, wasn't merely about officiating at all. It was about fostering deeper connection, ensuring clearer communication, and rebuilding essential trust between those who dedicate their lives to playing the game and those who are tasked with governing it. And as someone who had witnessed the WNBA fight tooth and nail for its own recognition for decades, she knew this was yet another pivotal moment that would sternly test how deeply the league was truly prepared to listen when its most vital voices spoke up. But how did a seemingly straightforward debate about whistles and fouls morph into such a profound question about power, trust, and who genuinely holds the reins of the game? Keep watching, because the answers are more complex than you might imagine. The very essence of basketball, at its core, is defined by the unseen lines and the piercing sound of a whistle. These aren't merely technicalities. They are the fundamental architects of the game, dictating not just the pace of play, but the very boundaries of acceptable physical interaction. Every single whistle, every call, every non-call, acts as a subtle yet powerful force, shaping not only individual possessions, but the broader narrative and strategic landscape of an entire contest. It's through these seemingly simple rules and their interpretation that the beautiful chaos of the game finds its structure, influencing everything from player aggression to coaching strategies, ultimately determining how the sport feels to both play and witness. Sue Bird, a seasoned veteran with decades on the court, understood this intricate relationship more profoundly than most. Leaning back, she vividly recalled countless instances where the piercing sound of a single whistle had irrevocably altered the rhythm of a game, shifted the momentum of an entire season, and even, in some cases, redefined the trajectory of a player's career. For her, the ongoing discussion surrounding officiating was far from an abstract theoretical debate. It was a lived reality, a constant presence she had felt adapted to and navigated throughout her unparalleled professional journey. Her intimate perspective offered an unparalleled lens through which to view the profound impact of every call. When the conversation inevitably circled back to the challenges faced by dynamic players like Paige Beakers and the continuous need for defensive adaptation, Bird felt compelled to delve into a more profound, often overlooked aspect of the game. She emphasized how refereeing itself doesn't just govern individual games. It fundamentally shapes playing styles, owns players' raw instincts, and profoundly impacts their on-court confidence. She vividly recalled a crucial period, the U.S. women's national team's college tour, which unfolded in the fall of 2019 and stretched into the winter of 2020, just before the world irrevocably changed. These exhibition games against top-tier college programs were primarily designed to hone Team USA's prowess for international competition, but they unexpectedly unveiled a series of deeper challenges. While many still recounted the stunning loss to Oregon, Bird preferred to momentarily set that memory aside. What truly mattered, what truly resonated from those intense matchups, was not the outcome of a single game, but the profound systemic truths those contests unequivocally revealed about the intricate relationship between rules, officiating, and the very essence of elite basketball. Imagine the shock of elite athletes, at the peak of their careers, forced to unlearn the very fundamentals that defined their success. When USA Basketball agreed to play under college rules with college referees, what seemed like a minor concession on paper became a seismic shift on the court, fundamentally altering the entire feel of the game. Legends like Sue Bird and her seasoned teammates, accustomed to the physicality and nuances of professional play, suddenly found themselves in a bewildering new reality. Hand-checking, initiating contact, the very habits ingrained over decades, were suddenly forbidden. They had to move, defend, and react with an entirely different philosophy, enforced by officials who operated under a distinct set of principles. Bird vividly recalled the sheer frustration of this constant readjustment. It was a revelation the same referees, sometimes even the exact individuals, could call a WNBA game one way and a college game another. This wasn't a flaw, it was undeniable proof that officiating wasn't a rigid, unchangeable force, but a flexible system molded by the institutions and powers that be above them. The standard could and did shift, leaving players with no choice but to adapt. For Bird, this realization carried a profound truth. If officiating culture could morph so drastically between settings, then it absolutely could evolve within the WNBA too. It wasn't about pointing fingers at individual officials, but about acknowledging their immense influence and the overarching structure guiding their decisions. As she often articulated, players will always play the way referees allow. If a more physical brand of basketball is permitted, athletes will naturally adapt to that robust style. Conversely, if even the slightest touch fouls are emphasized, they will meticulously adjust their game to avoid them. In essence, the referees, through their interpretation and enforcement, drew the very boundaries of the game itself. Bird harbored genuine empathy for these officials, understanding the grueling nature of their job. Split-second calls under unrelenting pressure, every single decision filmed, slowed, and relentlessly scrutinized. She never envied their position, yet she also recognized that their collective approach possessed the power to shape game outcomes in ways that transcended the simple scoreboard. This potential for systemic evolution, the fact that change was not only possible, but had already occurred across various leagues and levels, was what truly fascinated her. It didn't demand an overnight revolution, but it was definitively achievable, and in her expert view, absolutely necessary. Because when exceptional talents like Collier or Burr are forced to adapt, not to strategic brilliance, but to sheer inconsistency in officiating, the beautiful integrity of the game itself inevitably suffers. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Bird often found herself pondering a pivotal question: what if just one small, deliberate adjustment, one commitment to a consistent officiating standard, were applied during the high-stakes environment of the finals? Could such a focused effort, even in a single cleaned-up area of the game, truly restore the delicate balance that seemed to be eroding? While she admitted there were no simple answers, her conviction was unwavering. The fundamental fairness, the breathtaking flow, and the inherent beauty of basketball hinged as much on the integrity of the rules that governed it as on the extraordinary players who lived by those rules every single day. As her insightful observations resonated throughout the league, a much larger, more unsettling question continued to echo. Could the escalating chaos on the court genuinely be reined in and fixed, or had the very essence of fairness already slipped irrevocably beyond reach? The stakes, she knew, were higher than ever. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. From Sue Bird's unparalleled perspective, the critical conversation unfolding wasn't merely about a single controversial play or the officiating mishaps of one particular night. No, her concern ran far deeper. It touched upon the very heartbeat, the pulsating rhythm of the game itself. Watching intensely from the sidelines, she could viscerally feel an unsettling tension, a constant push and pull between the fluid freedom of movement and stifling physical restraint, between the dazzling display of individual skill and its frustrating suppression. There was an undeniable, almost palpable dissonance in the WNBA's rhythm lately, a discordant note that simply didn't sit right with her meticulously trained eye. She had witnessed it unfold countless times, players at the zenith of their athletic prowess, struggling not due to a lapse in form or a flawed strategic execution, but because they were being relentlessly held, grabbed, or illicitly blocked off the ball in pervasive ways that systematically stifled their explosive movement and shattered the natural, beautiful flow of the game. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. It was the sight of two hands, often unseen by the whistle, deliberately stopping a moment of pure, unadulterated brilliance. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. This wasn't merely the occasional instance of rough defense. This was a pervasive systemic interference with the very artistry that elevates basketball into a truly beautiful sport. Sue Bird was acutely aware she wasn't alone in her simmering frustration. Other respected veterans, like the formidable Becky Hammon, had publicly voiced similar concerns, giving powerful echo to the quiet anxieties that countless seasoned players felt deeply but rarely dared to articulate aloud. And then a seismic shift occurred with the electrifying arrival of Caitlin Clark. Suddenly, those long simmering quiet frustrations weren't just being whispered in locker rooms, they were magnified exponentially, thrust into the glaring spotlight for the entire world to observe. In a strange, almost poetic twist, Caitlin had inadvertently become a living mirror, reflecting every subtle flaw, every overlooked habit, every tolerated inconsistency that had been silently allowed to fester within the league for years. A new wave of fans, many of whom were just discovering the WNBA for the very first time, watched, wide-eyed and genuinely puzzled, starting to ask the exact same penetrating questions Sue Bird had been posing for decades. They saw it, and their collective reaction was an astonished, "Wait, what just happened?" Asterisk, 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 asterisk. And the deeper they looked, the more glaringly obvious the patterns of disruption became. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Time and again, what should have been breathtaking moments of fluid, masterful motion were instead being ruthlessly interrupted by subtle yet impactful clutches, jarring bumps and illicit grips, all too often sailing completely unnoticed by the officials. For Sue Bird, this wasn't about accusations of favoritism or a desperate plea for radical rule changes. This was, at its very core, about the fundamental integrity of the sport. How could the WNBA genuinely showcase its unparalleled talent, its brightest stars, if those very athletes weren't afforded the basic freedom to move, to play, to innovate, and to create the magic that drew millions? The crucial conversation, she firmly believed, had to begin with an unwavering commitment to restoring freedom of movement on the court, but it certainly couldn't and shouldn't end there. The true underlying challenge was far more profound, touching the very foundations of the league's future. It begged the question, how could the WNBA strategically invest in not just good, but the absolute best officials in the world? How could it meticulously ensure that every single whistle, every pivotal call reflected not merely a robotic consistency, but a profound inherent respect for the game's ever-evolving brilliance and the extraordinary athletes who define it? For legendary WNBA star Sue Bird, the stakes extended far beyond individual calls or the outcome of a single game. Her concern cut to the very core of the WNBA's identity and its aspirations for the future. Beneath her typically composed demeanor, a profound urgency simmered, a quiet alarm bell ringing about the league's trajectory. She understood that if the game failed to adapt, if it continued to tolerate systemic flaws in its officiating, the cost wouldn't just be the injustice of unfair play in crucial moments, but something far more existential, the slow, insidious erosion of the WNBA's very soul. How, she pondered, could a burgeoning league truly thrive and reach its full spectacular potential if its most brilliant athletic stars were perpetually shackled, their talents stifled, and their performances undermined by inconsistent and flawed officiating? What kind of future, both on and off the court, could possibly be built on such shaky foundations? Sue Bird articulated that the true problem extended far beyond mere physical contact, morphing into a critical question about the very foundation upon which the WNBA was constructing its future. She observed alarming cracks appearing in the league's infrastructure, not from a deficit of skill among the referees, but from a deeply flawed system dictating their performance. The glaring inconsistency was infuriating. Some nights, games were allowed to devolve into chaotic, bruising wrestling matches, while on others the whistle was tight, guiding a fluid, rhythmic display of basketball. This wildly unpredictable standard wasn't a reflection of the referees' capabilities. Bird knew they were highly skilled professionals, but rather a symptom of varying mandates. The most unsettling revelation for her was the dual role many officials played, working both college and professional games. In the collegiate arena, these same referees enforced strict standards, calling fouls that preserved the game's rhythm and allowed players to truly showcase their athleticism. Yet, when they stepped onto a WNBA court, they often seemed constrained by entirely different directives, almost as if the league itself was subtly encouraging a more lenient, less precise approach. It became starkly clear that this wasn't about a lack of talent or judgment, but about what the WNBA was willing to tolerate, what it chose to prioritize, and most damningly, what it allowed itself to overlook. And then there was the uncomfortable truth whispered among veterans, a painful reality no one wanted to vocalize. The WNBA's most exceptional referees never stayed. They were inevitably poached by the NBA, lured by significantly larger paychecks and the prestige of higher-profile games. This wasn't a broken talent pipeline. It was a systematically drained one, siphoned away by a deeply entrenched system that consistently positioned women's sports as secondary. For Bird, this was a bitter, all-too-familiar narrative, playing out not just in officiating, but across every facet of the league. From elite trainers and innovative marketing experts, to savvy public relations specialists and even charismatic broadcasters, women's leagues would meticulously develop these professionals, only to see them ultimately migrate to the men's side when the financial incentives became too great to ignore. This relentless cycle, she passionately argued, was not merely unfair, it was fundamentally unsustainable. How could the WNBA ever hope to grow into its magnificent full potential if every significant investment in excellence, every carefully cultivated talent was eventually handed off to someone else? The challenge, therefore, was far more profound than simply implementing better rules or demanding stricter whistles. It was about meticulously constructing a comprehensive structure that inherently valued an retained the best talent, from the players on the court to the executives in the front office. Bird herself admitted that identifying these deeply rooted problems was undeniably easier than forging their complex solutions. Yet, despite the daunting scale of these issues, Sue Bird remained an unwavering advocate for progress, firmly believing that genuine transformation demanded facing these uncomfortable truths head-on, ensuring unfettered freedom of movement for players, establishing uncompromising consistency in officiating, and perhaps most critically, demonstrating an absolute, unwavering commitment to retaining the brightest, most talented individuals within the women's game at every level. Without such a fundamental shift, she warned, the WNBA risked far more than just losing control of its on-court flow. It risks irrevocably losing control of its entire future. So what are your thoughts on this complex dilemma? Can the WNBA truly break free from the persistent shackles of inconsistent officiating and the relentless drain of its best talent, finally carving out a future where its excellence is not just recognized, but fiercely protected and nurtured? Or are we destined to see history repeat itself, with women's sports always playing second fiddle? We're eager to hear your perspectives, so please share your insights and theories in the comments section below. If you found this deep dive into the WNBA's challenges both engaging and thought-provoking, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more untold stories, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another expose.